Welcome back to the Ultimate Seattle Sports Show, and it is great to have on our program today a longtime Seahawks writer himself, Greg Bell from the News Tribune in Tacoma. And Greg, we always love having you on, especially the day after the Seahawks make their first-round pick. We know they took Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame, 32 overall, running back with a lot of upside. I got to ask you, first of all, what's your reaction to the pick?
Paul, thanks, Chris, for having me on. The first thing was they tried to trade down and thought they were going to. John Schneider had done that, and he had traded his first-round pick 14 times in the previous 16 drafts as Seahawks GM. And they thought they had a deal from 32 to go down. And then the first thing that conspired against them was Ty Simpson going to the Rams inexplicably at 13. And that removed a lot of possibilities for teams in the second round jumping up to try to get a quarterback, Ty Simpson, at 32. And then there were 8 trades in all in the first round last night. 6 of them happened right in front of the Seahawks, right under their noses, 20 to 31. That spots they had 6 trades. The 49ers didn't do their rivals any favors by trading back twice, including with the Jets, who had the 33rd pick right behind the Seahawks, the first pick of the second round. The 49ers traded entirely out of the first round by trading with the Jets, who jumped in front of the Seahawks. So these potential suitors went away. And when John Schneider was trying to trade down, he didn't have anyone to trade with. They could have gotten Jadarian Price in the second round, and that was their choice. That was their plan. They were going to trade down and still get Price, and then they had no one left to trade with, which is why they took him at 32, higher than they had expected. Look, we can talk about 40 times and productivity. In fact, he had one of the best kickoff returners in the country, 6 yards a carry, 18 touchdowns combined the last 2 years. Why they picked him is the culture fit inside the locker room. Here's a guy who turned down millions of dollars in offers in NIL to leave Notre Dame and stayed as a backup to Jeremiah Love his entire college career, said he wanted to take on that challenge. And that resonated with Mike Macdonald and the culture he's already built here. The biggest thing they have to do this year, guys, to get back to the Super Bowl is replicate the reason they got there last season. And that's the culture and brotherhood inside the locker room, how they can project these 20, 22-year-olds to fit in there. That's a tough trick. They think Jadarian Price has that. There's a story of his mother who had breast cancer, had Jadarian when she was 17 years old, had breast cancer when he was 12. He raised his younger sisters, 10 and 6 years old, while his mom had 16 rounds of chemotherapy. And I asked Jadarian last night about that and the inspiration his mom is for beating breast cancer as she did. And he said, you know what, when I was upset that I was a backup at Notre Dame and wasn't playing, or I had an Achilles tear in 2022 and missed an entire season, I thought I had a bad day. I thought of my mom. And that is nothing compared to what my mom showed me how she can get through. So it's that character, it's those life experiences, it's the loyalty to the program at Notre Dame. That's why he's a Seahawk today.
Yeah, I mean, Greg, we chatted with you about this on what they're going to do in the draft, and they're going to go after Seahawk players. And I think Price is definitely a Seahawks player. Now, Paul, I do want to give Greg a shout out. I thought it was Flannel Friday today, and look, Greg gets he has his own show now on KJR. He's got his own, he pretty much runs the News Tribune. And look at him, he's like going to prom tonight, Paul. I mean, I would have dressed up more, Paul. I feel bad about this.
It's Casual Friday, Chris. I don't know why you're complaining.
Okay, but Greg's dressed up. He looks good.
I've seen the first few podcasts you've kicked off with. It looked like a black tie affair. I thought I needed a tuxedo. You guys were going coats and all this Magnum PI looking suits. I was like, what the? Oh. And then you come up with flannel looking like Nirvana on Friday. I didn't get that.
Well, congrats on the radio show. And Greg, I love what you do and how you write and how you kind of, you asked that question last night about his mom. And I think it's a perfect fit. I think we talked all week. I think the Seahawks needed a running back. They went out and got a running back. But on the national side of things, Greg, there's some people out there giving the Seahawks a D grade, saying that they didn't hit on this one. The kid fumbles too much. What do we look? And I guess I can go back to Mike Macdonald, John Schneider. We don't care. We don't care. But just what are you hearing from the national side of things?
The same thing I've heard since Mount Rainier was erected in the Pacific Northwest. Remember, this is the national media who said that the Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner draft was an F, and they went to the Super Bowl. Look, I think if the national media is going to rip the Seahawks, they're not paying attention to what John Schneider's done. I'm going to sound like a homer here, but I've covered from Ruskell back to Ted Thompson to the first Super Bowl the Seahawks made in 2005. What John Schneider has done over 17 drafts, guys, he's the only general manager to take two teams to not only to the Super Bowl, but win them with two entirely different regimes, entirely different eras, and entirely different coaching staffs and philosophies. Maybe after 17 years, he knows what the hell he's doing. He had a couple down years after the post-Legion of Boom, which he said he went too much for need. Think Malik McDowell, L.J. Collier, and he got away from the type of person and player and fit they were culturally. He also said that he drafted a lot of guys who were in awe of Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, and the like, and the competition lacked inside the practices, and that he's looking for dogs who don't mind coming up from the rear and the challenge starters and be Devin Witherspoon type brash on the field. Well, Jadarian Price just spent 3 years behind the best college football player most people think in the country, and Jeremiah Love, and stayed there and said, yeah, I want some more of that, and signed up for it year over year. That's who the Seahawks want to draft. The national analysts, when they give grades the morning after the first round of a draft, 3/4 of them are just ticked off that their mock drafts were crap. So that's where the grades come from. Oh, you didn't pick the guy I'm supposed to be an expert that said they were going to Seattle. You stink. That's basically what mock drafts and reactions to them in the morning after are.
Yeah, it was funny to hear Mel Kiper. He lost it when the Cardinals took Love in the 3rd pick overall. He went after him saying, you know, he had Arvell Reese going there, so a defensive player going there, and it was interesting to hear him getting a little bent there. But there were some moves during this draft, and you talked about it earlier, the inexplicable move of the Rams taking a quarterback with the 13th pick overall in Ty Simpson. So that obviously surprised you and a lot of other people.
Yeah, it was hilarious to watch the smoke coming out of Sean McVay's ear during that press conference reacting to that pick. Sean McVay is tight, ultra tight with Matthew Stafford. He got him from Detroit to Los Angeles. He built the entire franchise around him. He won a Super Bowl with him, and he's going to let Matthew Stafford be the quarterback until he's 60 years old if Stafford wants to. And then Les Snead, a native Alabaman, who's he's good friends with Ty Simpson's dad. He drafts Ty Simpson. Sean McVay's never met Ty Simpson. Never. How are you going to pick the 13th pick in the draft? The Rams are never up at 13, right? How rare it was for an NFC Championship participant to be picking 13. That's a place they could have gotten any of the blue chip wide receivers, more help in their offensive line to protect staff, anything to reload and make another run with Matthew Stafford at 38, and they draft a layaway quarterback who's a couple years away and eventually will be the replacement. That's something you do in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, not when you have the highest pick you've had in a generation if you're in L.A. McVay's like, hey, let's be clear. This is Matt's team. I don't care who my GM just picked. This is Stafford. That was some entertaining.
I don't think Seahawks fans have ever applauded for a Rams pick before, but they were last night.
No, they loved it. That was the best Rams Seahawks pick there ever was. That was.
All right, Greg. So where the Seahawks? We talked about needs: running back, edge rusher, cornerback. Where do they go from here? 2 days to go.
You know what, guys? The cornerback class has pushed down. There only was the one top guy in the first round last night, which pushes all the guys like Colton Hood, McCoy from Tennessee has injuries concerns with his knee and maybe needs a second knee surgery. He's a top 12 talent that's been pushed to the second round. What that in turn, the trickle down can mean is a guy like Brandon Cece, a cornerback from South Carolina, who I think is a Mike McDonald prototype. Mm-hmm. I mean, he fits run support, inside, outside coverage. knows all 11 positions on the field, which is what McDonald demands of his Seahawks. Brandon Cece is coming into play for the Seahawks, even at 64, which maybe they hadn't thought about that. But the way the first round pushed down, here's the thing they're going to probably now, because of how yesterday transpired, stay at 4 picks. Because they have very little draft value now at the bottom of rounds 2 and 3 to move back. The draft value charts say if you move back from the bottom of 2 and 3, you're probably only going to get a 6th, 7th round pick in return. Whereas if they would have been able to move back last night, they would have gotten a high 4th round pick for it. So I don't think they have the ability to move down. They certainly don't have any ammunition to move up. And it's obvious he doesn't want to touch his cachet of 12 picks in next year's draft, which is much stronger than this year's draft. So by design, they had 4 picks in this year's draft because they saw it weaker. They traded away picks, including to get Rashid Shaheed. And because of last night, it looks like they're going to stick with 4. I expect cornerback. I expect edge rusher. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a guy named Big Citrus from Iowa State. He's Dominique Orange. He's 370-plus pounds if they're being generous. He's a run-stuffing, man-eating guy in the middle. Doesn't pass rush much, but just eats up guys in the run game. That's the kind of guy the Seahawks could use now that Jaron Reed's turning 34 and that all. And
Greg, let's be honest.
They take a right guard, too.
That's one of the best nicknames around.
No doubt, man.
Big Citrus. Hey, man, you talk about loyalty. This guy stayed at Iowa State for 4 years. Ames, Iowa, when he had offers of millions of dollars. Paul, you and I are Midwest guys.
Right.
If you stay in Ames, Iowa, and turn down millions of dollars, you got something more than football going on.
Yeah, that's huge loyalty. That's right, Greg. Well, listen, man, we appreciate your time today and all the great input and insight. And enjoy the rest of the draft, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Anytime, guys. Great. Congrats on the new show. It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Greg Bell from the News Tribune, and a lot to look forward to as we continue our draft coverage. Much more with the draft, and we'll look ahead to the Mariners game against the Cardinals as they are taking the Cardinals on to St. Louis, the Twins on to Minnesota. That's part of their road trip this week. We'll talk some baseball. We come back here on the Ultimate Seattle Sports Show.